Good morning, everyone. Welcome. A nice beginning of summer day. Share some Dharma practice. I'm looking around and seeing a few faces I don't recognize, so welcome. And particularly for your benefit, but also since we'll be doing something a little bit different than we usually do, for everyone's benefit, I'll say a little bit about what we're going to do today. Today is what we call our all-day sit, though it's really banker's hours, ending at 4. And today, Michael is on vacation. I'm glad you all understand how much he deserves that. Some time where he doesn't have to organize anything, some space after all the effort that he's put forward. So I'm feeling very grateful for what he's done, and we will do our best to fill in today. One of the things that we thought we'd do, or the main thing we thought we'd do, is since Khenpo Rinpoche was just here, and it's usually of benefit to remind ourselves of teachings so that they don't pass in front of our eyes, in our ear, and out the other ear, and that they actually have some opportunity to settle in. So we're going to review the thread of the teachings that Khenpo Rinpoche focused on Saturday, which is the 4 Dharmas of Gampopa. And we're going to approach it more from the perspective of practice. He spent the whole day offering explanations in some detail and kind of a lot of information, but the 4 Dharmas of Gampopa are not fundamentally about information. Khenpo Rinpoche offered several perspectives, how you could understand them. And in the end, he said, all the Buddha's teachings, we can say that all of the teachings of the Bhagavan Buddha, whether it be the sutra or the tantra, everything he taught can be subsumed within these 4 Dharmas of Gampopa. That's a pretty tall claim, big claim, a very big statement. And for those who are not familiar, I'll just recite them and we can let them settle in for a second. Bless me that my mind may turn toward the Dharma. Bless me that my Dharma may follow the path. Bless me that the path may clarify confusion. Bless me that confusion may dawn as wisdom. Though we can say that we could find all of the teachings of the Buddha within this, the 4 Dharmas is not fundamentally a philosophical or didactic approach. It's a pithy summary of, you could say, the stages of the path. It's more about how the path works and what makes it work. And fundamentally, it's about transformation. The 4 Dharmas of Gampopa, there's this book, Confusion Arises as Wisdom, which is actually the core of it are teachings that one of Gampopa's students wrote down, and each of the chapters begins, Rinpoche said, referring to Gampopa. And Rigotuko offers commentary on that. But at the very beginning of the chapter on the four dharmas of Gampopa, Gampopa himself says, or this is what the student says, the precious Guru said, whatever good dharma practice you do, whether study, reflection, listening, keeping the precepts, accumulation, purification, or meditation, should not become just another activity. Instead, dharma practice should be transformative. Dharma practice should be transformative. So how does this all relate to transformation? What's laid out within this? We'll go into it in some detail. We'll actually go back and we'll go through the stages with some contemplations and meditations. But it's good sometimes to look at the end, kind of where we're headed. And in this case, that's helpful because it points towards something of profound simplicity. And when Khenpo Rinpoche had finished going through both views, ways to explain the four dharmas, he then asked the question, so if it was all going to boil down to one thing, what would it be? And he actually challenged all of us to come up with answers. And then, as everybody who is here remembers, he pointed over there at this calligraphy and said, Tamo Shepa, Tamo Shepa, ordinary mind. And then proceeded to give a little bit of introduction to this. And I find it helpful, even though it's hard to grasp how, intellectually, it's hard to grasp how confusion arises as wisdom. And it's hard to, as he said, it's hard to understand the words ordinary mind in a way that actually captures the gravity of it. But it points to something that's very simple, very immediate, very direct. It points to something about how our experience unfolds moment to moment, and how we do not recognize how that unfolding occurs. Not recognizing it, we have what is called co-emergent ignorance. The ignorance arising in the moment of not recognizing. If recognized, we have co-emergent wisdom. And he went into a little bit of explanation about that. And as we all can recall from Khenpo Rinpoche's his demeanor, his energy and enthusiasm, he went into it with great enthusiasm, with great heart. And so I think it's always good to remember that in the middle of all our activity in the Dharma, that there is this point. There is something that if we had put all the causes in place, it would be accessible right in the moment. In every single moment, not changing one thing about it. And then he asks an interesting question. Went on, he said, so we say this ordinary mind practice, this practice of ordinary mind is the easiest, the most profound practice there is. Nothing higher than it. But if that's the case, then maybe some of us might give rise to doubt from time to time. If that's the case, why didn't the Buddha just teach that? Why teach all these other things that seem kind of difficult and to involve all this work? And then Khenpo Rinpoche went on to explain. As I've said before during the other teachings, the problem is that we haven't accumulated merit and we haven't purified our obscurations. If we haven't done that, it's very difficult to recognize this ordinary mind for what it is. We can't see that this is the very essence of our mind. And even if we do have some glimpse into it, even if we can see that that's the nature of the mind, we don't have trust. And even if we have a glimpse, we don't have trust. That's all we need to do. And so without this confidence and trust, then it's hard to sustain the energy. It's easy to fall back on thinking that something much more complicated is needed. And in a way, we're right. Not actually about the ordinary mind, but we are right that there are a lot of things that we need to do in order to put in place the causes for us to recognize what's right in front of us in this ordinary mind. So, as we begin, Zopa is going to do some contemplations to help us go back to the beginning. How is it that we would set in place all these causes? But to start out with, we, as we always do, we will turn our minds towards the Dharma. We will recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer that we have.
Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness.
Good morning. It's wonderful to see you all. Thank you for coming here instead of doing all the myriad of things we could be doing and we try to do with our lists. So I'm caught by something Bill just shared that I was reading about yesterday, our co-emergent ignorance. It's funny because most of the time we think of the phrase co-emergent wisdom, right? So this co-emergent ignorance is the kind of hard shell that our minds are caught in right now. And it's okay. Particularly because that very difficulty is going to be the path and is the path. So there's not this difficult thing and then some special path. We use that ignorance to see it. It's interesting. But it's kind of like when you fall down on the floor, you have to use the floor to stand up. But first you got to fall down and notice you're on the floor. And then you use the floor to stand. So this is the simple, but apparently appears as a complication, this co-emergent ignorance. But it's not. We could spend all day just thinking about what Bill and I have just said now and not say anything else. But of course, the path is vast and profound, and we're not, well, I can't speak for everyone in here. I don't know where your Dharma is, but for most of us, we have to start where we are. And that, frankly, is within this co-emergent ignorance. Pure nature of mind, always there, never gone. This is true for everyone. This is true for everyone. This is true for people you're sure it's not true for. It's true for everyone. In this way, we're totally equal. No difference. This pure, luminous, fully compassionate, natural mind is always present in all beings, all things. What rises with it, co-emergent, due to our patterns, habits, so-called karma, actions, is the ignorance. And then on top of that, all the afflictions rise. We run after things. We push things away. Totally deluded from the first step. But that's okay too, because we're going to use these delusions to free ourselves. What else could we use? This is what we've got. It's a very practical kind of thing. So just a little outline of the day. I will be leading some contemplations and then dropping into Shine for the first two dharmas of Gampopa. We'll have breaks, we'll have Q&A. We're going to kind of flow, so we'll see how those work. And then Bill will lead the second two dharmas of Gampopa.
3 and 4.
Yeah, 3 and 4, the second two. Sorry, different math. He went, oh, not number 2. I'm doing 1 and 2. He's doing 3 and 4. And also with plenty of time to practice shamata. So that's how we framed this. We'll see how it goes. May my mind turn toward the Dharma. Set that thought really firmly in your heart. That request, it's interesting. It's in the form of a request. We're requesting ourselves to make that turn. So the way we thought this might work well, or at least I thought, and Bill went along with it, is that we'll turn to a very familiar friend called the four thoughts that turn the mind. Turn. Lama Michael has taught us over and over that his teacher, Kala Rinpoche, did these four thoughts over and over and over. I think he said one time something to the effect that he never started teaching without at least mentioning these, or rarely did. How can we turn from our co-emergent ignorance towards this beautiful path that leads to us understanding our already present Buddha nature? So I'm doing one little trick with them today, because as I thought through them the last couple days, it worked well for me. That's what we often do, and then we hope it works for you. So I'm doing them in the reverse order. Four thoughts that turn the mind. First, I'll say them in our usual order. Precious human life, our current situation, the opportunities of our beautiful current situation. Second, impermanence and death. Those are the facts of this beautiful life. Third, karma, that each thing we think, karma means action, but it took me a while to realize that that doesn't just mean physical action. It's the action of every thought, the action of every word, the action of every physical movement. So those have effects. That's all karma is saying. It's not saying good, bad, go to heaven, go to hell, you deserve it. None of that. It's just saying we act, there's an effect. And the final one, when we're in the usual order, is samsara, the mind of suffering, the mind of confusion, the mind that rises co-emergent with the true nature mind for us now. But this can shift, and we're doing that already. So we'll be going through, how does that shift occur? Make sense so far? You're supposed to nod. Or you could do this. I'd like to see that too. Okay, let's start with the last one first. Samsara. As I stated, samsara appears due to our confusion. Samsara appears due to our confusion. It's not solid. It's not a place. It's not anything. It's confusion. What's confusion made up of? What's your confusion made up of? Bunch of thoughts, bunch of patterns, bunch of sensations. Try to pull them out and show them to someone. Nada. So powerful. So let's just take a moment and contemplate this. Now, I want to say one thing about contemplations, and then I won't repeat it, but we're going to be doing contemplation. One time Lama Michael said here, early on, he said, people don't really know how to contemplate. So remember the 3 things you do in the Dharma: you study. That is, right now you're hearing. That's a part of study. Reading, you're studying. Discussing, you're studying. Second, you contemplate. What this is taking that study and enlivening it in your own heart, your own life. Otherwise, it's a book on a shelf. So that's the contemplative questions. I'm hoping I've created some that will help you bring it to your life, bring it to your relationships, bring it to what's difficult, bring it to what's joyful. Okay? That's the contemplation. And then, of course, I always say drop into meditation. I don't know why it feels that way to me. We drop the contemplation, the thoughts, and simply be with whatever is going in our mind without grabbing it, without following it. It goes by like clouds in the sky, except we get all attached. I hate that cloud. I love that cloud. That one looks like a dragon. I gotta think about that. No, we don't have to. Okay, so samsara, this, here, now. It's that ignorance that is this, here, now. The clinging to the body. The way we narrow down our lives into what's the thing you're worrying about now. I've got my list, so narrow. Just about my little teeny world. We just do this. Okay. So have a few breaths and settle in to your, nice meditation posture. This piece has everything to do with the first noble truth that the Buddha spoke of, his very first teaching. Suffering is, period. So to bring this to your own life, see it. I'll give a few suggestions, and we'll do 3 minutes on this. When I say see it, I mean see your own. We almost feel more comfortable, even though it's difficult, to look at other suffering. My friend who's sick, the people in the world who are involved with wars and domestic violence and all the things we could list. Where it's difficult is bring it to see yours. To the degree we don't understand our own, we cannot deeply understand that of others. And to the degree we don't have that deep understanding, we will not know how to end it. So here's the contemplation. Choose one of these for the next 3 minutes. I am aging without choice, inevitably. I can't stop it. It came with taking on this body. I am dying. Me, right here, now. I am living, but I am dying as a result of taking on this body. And I cannot stop that. and no one can. You can choose one of those, or I get sick without choice. I don't know what my next illness will be. So go deeply into this as you can in the next few minutes, with no judgment on yourself, with full loving kindness towards yourself, holding it, those truths within loving kindness towards yourself in your heart. And then at the end of 3 minutes, I'll ring the bell, and we will drop all thoughts and simply have shamata on whatever is floating by. Okay? Enjoy. If fear arises, remember your refuge. And stick with the truth. Now, one more minute of contemplation, noticing which obstacles arose for you. Like mine was, I hate this. But it might be, I don't believe this. Or I'm not going to do this. Or I can't do this. So just take one more minute, just saying again, I'm aging, or working on I'm dying, or working on I get sick with no choice. And then seeing what kind of things float by your mind. It's quite important to see our own pattern of obstacles to these things. They are what create this hard shell, keeping us from turning toward the Dharma. So 1 minute on, just watch what arises saying, no, the aversion. And the last piece, before we simply do shine, is drop all judgments about that aversion. It too has nothing solid and therefore can easily be overcome. We just want to see it and not judge it. It's just, oh, yeah, I see that thought. I see that aversion. Just see it. No judging of it. It's not bad or good. It just is. You can say to yourself, what is this made of? This aversion, this struggle. Really look straight at it in your mind. Not telling a story, but look, what is it made of? Where does it arise? Out there? Somewhere? In some other person causes it? Now drop all thoughts. Of course, the more thoughts will come. Drop that contemplation. Have a little teeny stretch just to relax. And then come to shine. Just pick an anchor, your breath, the Buddha. Some of you do shine with no object. Whatever you do, get your ground. If you don't know what yours is, use the breath. It's very present, very easy. And we'll do 3 minutes of shine. Not returning to those thoughts. Whatever thoughts arise, go by like a cloud in a soft, breezy sky. Let them go. Let them be how they are. Impermanent. So that was the first one we're doing, but that's called number 4 of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. So key that we experience our own suffering. We shy away from it constantly because it feels difficult. I think the way out of that feeling difficult is to, well, number 1, hold refuge, hold bodhicitta, the wish for all to be free of it. And then, when we're working with it, every once in a while, to ask that question, what's this made up of? Patterns, thoughts, sensations, nothing else. Therefore, it's completely mutable, completely changeable, and we can be freed in an instant from seeing through to the nature of nothing solid there. It's also a little dismaying to realize we run around making these things so solid, and we even create war out of it. Wow, amazing. Okay, so number 3. My math is funny today. That was number 4. Now number 3 of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. That's all karma means. Actually, it's as I understand it, translated as simply cause. We lay on so many things from our culture about good, bad, deserves, doesn't deserve. She doesn't deserve that. It's a very funny thing to say in a Buddhist worldview. It's not about deserve, it's that causes were planted, this arose. Period. This is true for everything we experience. Karma, so-called positive, which leads to less suffering. So-called negative, which leads to more suffering. And then there's a neutral karma. We won't talk about it today, but doesn't have either of those 2 effects. So for this contemplation, number 1, relax. Relax. Recall your own Buddha nature. You're sitting just full of it. Full of it. Every molecule, every thought. Nothing but. You can call to mind a teacher or a teaching. That's the refuge. I'm going to do this for the benefit of all, and I take refuge in what I know is reliable. For me, I literally call up the faces of a few of my teachers. And I know I feel some sort of blessing from that, or confidence from that. So for this contemplation on cause and effect, bring up a memory from your life. It can be something, of course, you'll choose what level you work at. It could be a very powerful time that you know what you did caused harm. Again, hold yourself with loving kindness, but a time you thought, said, or did something that caused harm. Just connect with that action, that speech. Just bring it to mind clearly in a relaxed way within loving yourself. within knowing that if you had understood the effects, you wouldn't have done it, but also knowing you did it. Now, stick with just one memory, or it will get too complex. What can happen here is we can fall pretty quickly into guilt, which is not useful. That can be replaced with what's called regret. I wish I had not done that because I see it harmed others. I wish I had not done that, but I did, and harm was done to others. Regret focuses on the harm to others, whereas guilt comes back to the I and starts building up a story. I'm bad, I'm this, I'm that. So the regret is the compassionate way to look at this. It can soften our heart, we can feel pain, which is a soft heart. Guilt puts us into fear. So simply stay with that regret, but look very clearly at the unwise action and suffering results with compassion for your own suffering. You did that because you were suffering. See that. And then see also the suffering caused to others. So we'll spend 3 minutes contemplating this. Sometimes in this contemplation we want an escape valve, and we start telling a story like, yeah, I did that, but he, she, they. If that rises, just drop it and come back to, I did it, I wish I hadn't. Within loving kindness for self and others. Now, obviously, on this path, this is not to bum us out because we hold it within the truth that what we see, what we recognize, we can have effect on by that very recognition. And we won't go into this right now, but a little later on the second Dharma, there are ways to do what's so-called purifying, getting rid in the mind of these words for them are afflictions, obscurations. There's a way out. We have it right in our hand, right in our heart. So we balance that with, I can look, I'm brave, I can look at it. I can look at it even deeper now that I am following the Dharma. Because when we don't recognize our own Buddha nature or that there is a path out, we refuse to look. We defend, we judge, we put it off on someone else. This is so natural, but this is so important that we own up to what we have done with loving compassion. But we own up, we grow up, and we own up. Does that make sense? You're supposed to nod your head. Okay. And if it doesn't, fine. Didn't make sense to me either for a long time, and only part of it makes sense now. Okay, let's just do some shamata for about 3 minutes. Let any kind of whatever comes, just go. Come, go. Watch the story try to grab you and hold you, and watch for, I really need to analyze this. No, I don't. One thing I read very early in Mahamudra, I'm not sure which book now, read too many. When the mind fills with thoughts of what really worked for me was saying, wherever your thoughts are going, go there now. Like clearing off the cluttered table. So if you get a lot of clouds, wherever you are going, go there now. And start fresh with your anchor, which is your breath or whatever anchor you're using. Okay. Just relax. Okay. I hope that's helpful. Continue these contemplations at home regularly. So we're going to take a break of about 15 minutes, and our dear friend Jeff, who is also Zopa, which means patience or fortitude. I think he's got more than me, but no comparisons. We'll take a break. As we always do on our all-day shamata, please keep silence. See if you can hold some of this space for everyone, moving around with awareness of our body, speech, and mind. And we just finished 2 of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, and we're within the first dharma of Gampopa. May my mind turn toward the dharma. So we'll come back and we'll do impermanence and death, and we'll do our precious human life, ending on a happy note. Okay.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.